and potential users, as well as some existing legacy users who may be using older versions of the software and either have not seen or started to take advantage of the new functionalities that we have in modeling in CADWorx Plant Professional. My name is Chad Snyder. I'm an applications engineer here with Plant Design Solutions, and we are the local Houston provider for Intergraph CADWorx and analysis solutions. Okay, we're going to start off with just a fundamental overview of CADWorx, which will be mostly verbal. We're also going to look at leveraging the piping rules, which is a big part of the automation built into the newer versions of the software. We're also going to look at putting the new grips to work. We now have new grips and new functionality and new ways we can utilize these grips in the model. We're also going to look at some different ways to take advantage of automation, where we can let CADWorx handle a lot of our functions as opposed to doing them manually with AutoCAD or by erasing a certain piece of geometry and then redrawing it. Instead of redrawing things, a lot of times we're now able to make modifications to our piping runs, so we're not having to redraw all the time anytime a change size or a change spec comes through. Okay, we're also going to look at assemblies as an asset. CADWorx Plant Professional will allow you to create standard assemblies for your company standards for things like drains or pump hookups or even an entire control manifold. Okay, as a quick brief overview for CADWorx Plant Professional in general, CADWorx is an AutoCAD-based plant design suite solution. It's intelligent 3D piping, and it is specification-driven, meaning, before you start your modeling, most ideally, you can fold your paper specifications per your engineering specs into CADWorx with long description formatting, everything the way you need to see it on a bill of material, so that you can take full advantage of the automation and the power in CADWorx all the way through the different steps in your job. It does come with Steel Professional, which is a intelligent structural package. Our equipment module, we do have a parametric equipment module that allows you to very intelligently and parametrically model equipment. So instead of doing mesh editing or AutoCAD 3D editing with solids, we can actually go and say, okay, I need a skirt, I need a elliptical head, and then add nozzles to those components as we go, all by just typing in values in a palette, as opposed to placing components and making modifications to your existing equipment becomes very easy because of these parametrics. We also have non-round shapes for HVAC for doing ducting and cable trays. CADWorx Plant Professional comes with live collision checking. We can run collision checking against piping and steel and any other AutoCAD 3D solids that you may have brought in, even if it's from another platform. CADWorx Plant Professional exports isogen isometrics, being the industry standard in automation for ISO generation. Very powerful tool to be able to generate your isometrics in an automated fashion using isogen from the 3D model in CADWorx. CADWorx can also work with a live database, which gives you a lot of power for generating reports and even making modifications to your bill of materials or long descriptions on the back end without having to actually open the model. Okay, also Intergraph CADWorx Design Review is included with Plant Professional, and it is a 3D review tool similar to Navisworks, but it is actually included with Plant Professional. Intergraph CADWorx P&ID standard is included with CADWorx Plant Professional, which is an excellent drafting tool for AutoCAD-based P&IDs. And the next bullet point there being model and P&ID synchronization, this comes into play with the upgrade from P&ID standard to P&ID Professional, which gives you the ability to create smart, intelligent PNIDs with a database behind them. And what that gives us the ability to do is link that database to our 3D model so that we can do discrepancy checks, we can do modeling from the PNID. There's a lot of power we can do there. Okay, and we also have links to stress analysis. The flagship for stress analysis out there in piping industry is going to be Caesar 2, which is also an Intergraph product. And we can export our geometry right from CADWorx and send that over to Caesar to be opened right up, additional parameters input, and stress analysis run. So instead of having to recreate your geometry for stress analysis, you can actually export it and save a lot of work that way. Okay, what I'd like to do right now is go ahead and take you into CADWorx Plant Professional. And what we're looking at here is just an exchanger skid. We've got a small little process area here. And I'm going to take this time to kind of show you the basic setups for getting your piping going. CADWorx is spec-driven, so we want to make sure that we set up our specification to get going with our modeling. And right up here in my menu bar, I'm going to hit the plant setup. And that's going to bring me to the setup dialog where I can look at some different options. I can change my drawing mode, customize some colors for our live feedback in the model. There's a lot of control here. I can go down here to specification size, and right now I'm using one of the out-of-the-box specifications. If I click this Browse button here, you can see the specs are contained in these PRJ files. So we can rename these PRJ files by your job numbers, and then that PRJ would contain all of the specifications that would be required for that job. Just a little bit of compartmentalization there. So I've got my main and my reduction size set there, and as long as I have my spec set, I'm pretty much ready to start modeling. One thing I do want to cover, though, while we're in the setup dialog is the piping rules. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, the piping rules is where a lot of the automation is housed in the newer versions of the software, whereas in legacy versions of the software being pre-2013, we did a lot of block modeling, a lot of mouse travel time where you're going and getting your gasket, you're going and getting your flange, you're going and getting your valves. And there was just a lot of just very basic block, give me my next component. With a new system like this, we can set up connection criterias where when we insert flanged components, CADWorx is automatically going to recognize that, you know, this is a flanged component, it's going in this pipe run, he's going to need flanges, he's going to need bolts, and he's going to need gaskets, and CADWorx will automatically give you all of that connection criteria based on these settings for these piping rules. Okay, let's go ahead and say apply and close, and I'll just start modeling here. What I've done, I've set my specification. I've set up some O-snaps that are a little bit more ideal for piping, and I'm ready to start routing. Now, in CADWorx Plant Professional, your spec view palette is really sort of your nerve center of CADWorx and the piping package. You can see over here I have my project file loaded. This is my current line number system, which this is built on a schema system. I'll show you that right fast. This is built intelligently. We can add different categories to our line number and control these from a drop-down setup, so we're not manually typing in information for those things on a regular basis. For right now, I'm going to go over here and hit my pipe option here on the spec view palette. You'll notice that we're looking at all the different components available in the spec, but only for the sizes that we currently have selected. So when we change size over here, you'll see the spec palette change. And that's just part of the level of control that you're presented with here in CADWorx in the spec view palette because it is spec driven. What I'm going to do, though, in the old system, I would have to start by putting on a gasket here. I'm going to come off the top side of this tube and shell exchanger over here. And in the old system, what I would need to do is I would need to do a lot of block modeling. I would come over here and I would get my gasket and put it on that nozzle, get my flange, put it on that nozzle, and then start routing with my either my 3D router line or block modeling, doing a component at a time. But with the new system, we can take advantage of a lot of automation, and with my piping rules set the way they are currently, I can actually come up here and either hit the auto route button, or I can grab pipe right off of the pallet right here, and I'm going to do a node snap on this CADWorx intelligent nozzle, and right off the bat, it's routing. It's telling me, okay, you want to start running some pipe here. How do we want to run this pipe? Well, I'm going to run over west just a little bit here, and I'm going to turn off my O-snaps mid-command so I don't grab an O-snap over here in the distance or something to skew my pipe. So with my ortho turned on, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to go west, and I'm going to go 5 feet, and then I'm going to pull down. And take note that CADWorx gave me my bolt, gaskets, flange, the things that I needed to connect to that nozzle based on the intelligence that was embedded in that nozzle when it was created in the CADWorx Parametric Equipment Modeler. So have a look over here at the elbow where I'm turning down an elevation here. We see the compass, the red compass there, and that's basically our on-the-fly UCS. And we can rotate it as we go without leaving the command by hitting the P and Enter key. And you see it flip the compass up in a vertical plane for me, so now I can run pipe down. Now, you'll also notice that I'm getting live dimensioning here, which is a really nice tool to be able to see what we're doing. I've got my dynamic input turned on, so it's being blocked a little bit, but when I pull over this direction, you can see I'm getting full dimensions there. And currently, it's dimensioning to the weld for my next spool piece. But if we're routing from centerline dimensions per a sketch, we could certainly toggle that by hitting T and Enter. And now we're running by centerline routing. And what I'm going to do in this case, I'm going to pull down and I'm going to go an arbitrary length. I'm just going to click here because we're going to use some nice automation in a little bit to set the elevation for that the bottom of this, what will be a little control loop here. And I've started to change from my elevation change, and I'm running north this time. I'm going to again hit P and Enter because I want my my compass to be up in the correct plane of operation. Okay, and now again I'm going to pull out north, and I'm going to click just an arbitrary length because again we're going to use some nice functionality from our new grip system to determine the length and the layout for this run. I've pushed Enter to go ahead and close out of my router command, and now what we want to do is we want to bring this run back so that it will sit perfectly above the steel right here. Our ultimate goal here is to have a nice 12-inch elbow stanchion here supporting this pipe on this I-beam right here on this wide flange. So I've put these components in already. They're already connected. We could use AutoCAD to move them, but that would be a lot of manual configuration. And anytime we do AutoCAD manual, we always open up the door for disconnects and isogen problems later on down the road. So anytime we can take advantage of CADWorx automation, we really want to do that. So I'm going to come in here, and one of our new square grip functions is if we grab the center grip on a pipe run that's connected, we'll get this compass here, if it can move more than one direction, to slide this branch back and forth. So if you look at my command line there, it's asking me what direction do I want to move this line. I'm going to pull east because I want to go back and forth. And you see CADWorx is understanding that these components are connected in a certain fashion. They're self-aware components. So they stay connected when we make these kind of changes. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull back, and without using a point filter of any kind, I'm just going to identify the east to west coordinate here that I need to sit on top of that steel right there. Now it's irrelevant if I select up here or if I select down here, as long as the coordinate that I select has the correct east to west value. So I'm going to get the midpoint of the bottom of the wide flange, and now I know that this line is sitting perfectly above that steel. I can check that. I'll go over to a southern elevation view and zoom in here, And you can see I'm nicely aligned here without ever having to know that dimension or take any measurements. Okay, I'm going to switch back to a southwest isometric view here, and I'm going to zoom in and see what we're looking at this point. And this line right here, we want to bring this down, like I said, so that we can support it with a 12-inch stanchion on this wide flange. So I'm going to grab that square grip again, and this time it's not going to ask me for a direction to move because the elbow only turns one direction. So we can only move it in one value. So I'm pulling this up and down now, and because I know I want this to be 12 inches from the steel, what I can do is I can align it with the top of the steel by grabbing the top of the steel here, and without using a point filter, it maintained all of its connectivity, and now the center line for that pipe is at the same elevation of the top of the steel. So now I can reactivate the grip and bring it up 12 inches. And now I can do a DI to check it, and I'll just go with a end point to end point here. And my delta for my elevation currently, per my UCS, is 1 foot exactly. So now when I go to support this elbow here using the support modeler, I could just type in 12 inches and I know that my stanchion will be sitting on top of that steel. Now, another one of our new square grip functionalities is the ability to stretch existing pipe to match a given value anywhere in the model. So without using a point filter, we are able to grab that square grip and pull and click any point in the model, and CADWorx will align with that point that you selected in the model. So what I'm going to do in this case is I want to bring this run eventually to the end of this skid and match with that wide flange there. So now I've aligned that, and if I switch to a western elevation view here, I can verify I'm sitting perfectly in line with that steel right there. Coming back to my southwest isometric view here, I'm going to utilize one of our new plus grips here. Anytime we have a run of pipe, we will have a square grip for doing those branch slides like we've done, but we'll also have a plus grip. Now these plus grips allow us to do a lot of different things, but the default when you activate it is going to be a T. So CADWorx assumes that you're wanting to add a branch here. And what we can do is we can type in a dimension, or we could do a midpoint snap here. You can see I'm getting live dimensioning from the weld to the center line of the branch. I've got a little bit of congestion there, so let me take a moment to isolate that line. This is another really nice tool in CADWorx. We'll isolate by line number, and now I've cleaned up all of that mess that I was looking at so that I can work on this line. That's really good practice for CADWorx. Once you have your overall layout done for a given line number, you can go into your palette and isolate it and then work on all your inline components. So in this case, what I'll do, I'll use a midpoint O-snap, and I'll grab the middle of this line here. And now I've set the location on the pipe for the T. And you can see I have full control over the rotation. I have my ortho turned on, so I'm only getting 90-degree intervals. But if I turn off my ortho, you can see I have full control over the rotation of that T. Now, if this needed to run over to another vertical rise that was at a non-90-degree layout, I could come over and grab a center point on another pipe or anything like that. And what it would do is it would set the rotation for that T to align with that component. So you could run right over to it and cut into it. Very similar to what we're about to do. Okay, turning my ortho back on, I'm going to use the compass here and pull north to set my rotation. And now I'm running pipe again, and I can type in 5 foot. CADWorx is intelligent like this. We put in a branch, it's going to let us route the whole thing. So I've come 5 foot out there, and now what I want to do is I want to cut into this bottom run here. And in the old system, you could cut out that pipe with the T, use a point filter, use AutoCAD commands to get things to line up. But with the new system, CADWorx will recognize that if you pull down through here, you must be wanting to connect here. The center lines have crossed. So CADWorx is going to say, okay, how do you want to connect here? Now we could put in a cross, or we could do a stub in. This is going to also read the branch chart for your specification and only show you the options that should be available for that particular header to branch connection. So in this case, I'm going to select T, and I'm going to let CADWorx put in that T for me in an automated fashion. And again, anytime we can utilize that automation, we want to take advantage of it, because it reduces the chances for user error or an isogen disconnect later on down the road. Now we're going to use the plus grip for another function. Now I'm going to activate the top of this bypass loop here, and I'm going to put in my bypass valve. When I hit that plus grip, it's going to activate. It's going to give me that same T that we got before, only this time I don't want a T. I want to put in another inline component. So what we can do is we can hit L and enter, and now we have our whole specification in a category fashion here in a flyout. So I can come over here and say I want to put in a valve. What type of valve? I want to put in a globe valve, and it's going to be a flanged 150-pound globe valve. And you see, just by telling CADWorx I want to put that valve in, it has put the valve in associated with that pipe. It understands its connection to that pipe, so it's already rotated in the correct orientation. And I can pull clean south of the vertical rise to tell CADWorx just fit that up fitting makeup to the T for the bypass line. It's very different from using AutoCAD blocks, because I can pull out here and click, and it didn't throw my block out in space somewhere. So CADWorx knew that was a flanged component, so it gave me everything that I needed there. But let's say that I put that valve in the wrong place. Well, we can always make modifications to inline component placements without having to redraw them. We could use AutoCAD and move it and then stretch our pipes like we would have in the old system. But the new system, we have the ability to reactivate an existing inline component by using the square grip in the middle of the valve. So I'll grab that, and you see now I've reactivated that valve. So now I can pull it and fit it to the other side of the bypass line if that's what I needed to do. And you see CADWorx has corrected that spool piece for me. Very nice functionality. Now, like I was saying earlier, when we have changes come through, we don't always have to redraw. And a nominal pipe size change is a good example of that. This bypass line, I put it in at the main size, but I need to come back, and it needs to actually be a reduced bypass line. So what I can do, I can come up here and use the change size command, and by selecting that, I'm going to get a flyout here. Do I want to do automatic, or do I want to do manual? Manual is going to change the size only of the components that we select. Automatic is going to follow the linear flow of the component that we select up to the headers. So as I select this elbow here, CADWorx is going to change this whole bypass line up to the main. So I'm going to change this down to a 3-inch, and CADWorx is going to highlight this T and say, what do I want to do here? I want to change the current component. Now I could add a reducing component and tell it that I want a concentric or eccentric reducer here, but in this case I'm going to change the current component so that it gives me a reducing T there instead. And you see it prompts you for both sides. So if you had a unique situation where you wanted to do or needed to do something different on the two sides of the bypass line, you have that, that ability. I'm going to say change current component again, and CADWorx is going to ask me select a component to keep its position. Now, let's say that I've gone through a lot of trouble to set the BOP for this pipe, for example. I can come in and click that pipe and say, let this pipe keep its BOP. So not only is CADWorx going to change the size of that line, it's going to move my T down, change it to a reducing T, so that the bottom of pipe for this 4-inch pipe is the same as the bottom of pipe for the 3-inch pipe that's going to take its place. So now I'll push enter, and there's that full automation there. It changed the size of my valve, changed the size of my flanges, gaskets, bolts, everything, just as if you had drawn it the right way the first time. Okay, another example here, we'll finish out this control loop here. I'll add this control valve, and by activating the plus grip, I'm going to get another T there, but I'm going to list out and get my whole spec out here, and I'm going to go get the control valve flange. And my goal here is I want to set this valve right on the center point of this internal spool piece here on our control loop. Now you can see that CADWorx is dimensioning to the south face of the flange for the valve. But we have some other options as well. We can hit J and enter, and CADWorx will toggle through the different insertion orientations. So by going to the center justification, now I can use a midpoint O-snap on this piece here, and now it's centered on that pipe. Now, very similarly to the way that we use the change size command to shrink our bypass line, we're going to use the change size command on manual this time to reduce down for our control valve. And you know, this is something that you could have done, taken that spool piece out, put in your eccentric reducers, and done all this manually, but we want to take advantage of this automation anytime that we can. So I encourage the workflow to put in the inline component at the nominal and then use the change size command. So I'm going to use the change size command again, and this time I'm going to select manual, and I'm only going to select the valve. And you'll notice that when I select the valve and push enter, CADWorx is going to say, what about this flange over here? It knows that that's a connection criteria for that valve, so we need to make sure that we go through and select the size for all of these things. So we're going to bring all these components down to 3-inch, and now CADWorx is asking us, what kind of reducer do you want to use on each side of this valve? Well, we're going to complicate things, and we're going to put in our eccentric reducer. We're going to do 4x3 eccentric reducer butt weld on both sides. And it's going to say, select a component to keep its position or push enter to finish. Now, we went through a good bit of trouble there setting the elevation for this pipe so that it was 12 inches to center from that steel. So I want to make sure CADWorx, by doing this automation, doesn't change the elevation of that pipe. I can select this elbow over here to ensure that. I don't want to select one of these spool pieces because they're going to be affected by the automation. And anytime I can select a component to keep its position and avoid the components that will be modified by the automation, I want to do that. So now I'm going to push enter, and I've got a little bit of a jumbled mess here now, but if I zoom in, I can see it's just asking me about my eccentric reducers. How do I want those to come in? Well, I want to pull down so that my flat side is on the bottom of the pipe for both sides. And there CADWorx has put in all of these components for me and made sure that everything has stayed connected. Another quick reference for connectivity is our plus grips. So I can select right here, and I can see that I do not have any plus grips on the endpoints of any of these components. That's just one of many different ways to check connectivity. I can come over here, this pipe is connected, but if I were to bring it out, if it were disconnected for some reason, if I had done some manual configuration, I would have a plus grip on the end of that there. So just another good graphic assistance tool there. Now I can go ahead and use the plus grip, and you'll start to see how quickly you're able to put in these inline components like this without having to do a lot of mouse travel time. I'm not spending time in my spec view palette. I'm not spending time digging through toolbars. I'm working this in a very organic fashion. I've put in my block valves, and now I need to put in my drains. So to put in my drains, I could sit here and use the plus grip, and I could list out and get my OLED. But something that I've done ahead of time is I've created an assembly for the drain. So CADWorx assemblies are a very, very important part of the automation and efficiency increases that are available to us in CADWorx 2014. The drain over here, I have these global assemblies set up, so I can just right-click on this drain and say, I want to insert this assembly. Now, This is a threaded a drain set up as a threaded OLED with a 3-inch nipple, a threaded valve, and a plug. It doesn't matter what size it was drawn at. CADWorx is always going to give us the ability to put this in on any nominal size header at any reduction size for the drain. So I'm going to come in and add this drain to this spool piece. So I just need to associate it with that pipe first. So I can click here, and now it's asking me, do I want to keep the pipe specification or do I want to keep the assembly specification? Which brings us to another great point with the assemblies. We can have this same assembly available to us without having to recreate it in any piping specification. So I could use this same assembly to put in a drain on a 300, 600, 900 pound specification. It's irrelevant. So CADWorx recognizes the nominal for the pipe you associated it with, and then it prompts you for the reduction size. This assembly was built as a half-inch drain, but as you can see, we can insert it at any size available. So this time I'm going to put it in at 3/4 inch. And now it's asking me for my location on the pipe. I'll do a midpoint snap and grab the middle and set my rotation and click. And now I have this drain just as if I had drawn it piece by piece by piece, only I didn't have to spend that time doing that. Now once I have that set up there, I can use AutoCAD to do some moving around. I can copy this over here and put it on the midpoint on this side because it's the same nominal size. So the assemblies, just because you created it as an assembly, you don't need to necessarily insert it as an assembly every time. We insert it once for each nominal and spec, and then you can use AutoCAD to copy them around. And because these are set up as global assemblies, these assemblies will be available to me regardless of what project I'm working on, regardless of what PRJ I have loaded for specifications. Okay, let's go ahead and bring back everything else. Well, I'll go to my line isolation palette and I'll say show all components. So now I've brought everything back here, and we're going to use our CADWorx support modeler to put in a elbow stanchion here. These are the supports that come with CADWorx, and these do show up on our isometrics as well as the when we transfer data over to a Caesar model. We do have the ability to send this support information over to Caesar. So as I pull down here with my ortho turned on, I'm going to turn off my O-snap so I don't get anything bogus and skew my support out here. But I can pull down and type 12 and enter. And I know that this is sitting right on top of that steel because I went through the trouble to set that elevation. Okay, let's look at this pump suction line over here. We're going to use this as an opportunity to display a couple more routing opportunities, different things that we can do. I'm going to reinitiate my router here, and I'm going to grab a node O-snap, and I'm going to grab on this suction line of this CADWorx Intelligent Nozzle for this suction on the pump. And CADWorx recognized what size I was needing because of the nominal size of that nozzle, and I can start pulling out here, but I know that eventually what I want here is going to be an eccentric reducer with fitting makeup to the flange. So I can let CADWorx put the flange and everything else in for me automatically. So knowing that, what I'll do is I'll list out and say, I'm going to go ahead and put on this reducer here. I'm going to say I want an eccentric reducer butt weld, and I'm going to go 6 by 8. That's a 6-inch nozzle, and my discharge on the bottom of my vertical vessel is 8-inch. So I'm going to go ahead and click that, and you see CADWorx automatically orientated that in the correct small and large size for me. And now it's asking for my flat side, so I'm going to pull down to get my flat side up. It's important to pay attention to the actual direction that you're getting. So I'm going to pull down and click, and now I'm routing again, and you see CADWorx gave me that connection criteria there. It gave me my gasket, bolt, and flange. That's all just part of the automation that you can take advantage of here. Now I'm going to go and put in a 3-foot spool piece here, and then I'm going to cancel the router and just take this as an opportunity to use some AutoCAD to replicate what I've already done once so I don't have to do it again. And I did a move instead of a copy, so let's bring that back over. And anytime we use AutoCAD for something like that, we can always go in and ensure that we've actually made that connection by clicking on the component and we don't see any plus script there. So I know that as I moved that down and then I came over and copied this one back, I've maintained connectivity. I haven't created any disconnects. Now I'm going to reactivate the plus grip on the end of this pipe. This is another function for our plus grips. Anytime we have a spool piece that's open on the end of pipe, we can hit this plus grip and reactivate the router just as we had left it when we canceled the command. And per my standards here, I put in that 3-foot spool piece. I want to maintain that 3-foot spool piece. And you can see as I pull over west to complete my pump suction line to the other pump, it's taking out for the elbow. So again, I can T for toggle and let that jump out. And now it's no longer taking out for the elbows. Now I can use a really nice router function here. I can do a C to connect and push enter and tell CADWorx, I want this line to come over here and connect to this. And then I'll say lines. And on a flat turn, we normally get a couple of bogus options here, but we can see what we need here. And by selecting that red outer line, you see CADWorx understood what I was trying to do and put in those components for me. I can push enter 2 times to accept, and now it's drawn all that for me. It's all connected. I don't have to worry about it. I know that's going to ISO. So now that I've got my pump to pump done, I'm going to activate the plus grip on the middle of this pipe run right here to get a T so that I can run over to the nozzle on my vertical vessel. Now, if I knew this dimension, I could type it in, but what we can do while we're sliding the T along the pipe, we can click any point in the model to align with that given point. So if I want to come here and without making any more turns, I want to come straight over and up to this nozzle, I can click on the node on the connection point for the nozzle, and CADWorx will align that T with that nozzle point. So now I can set my rotation and click, and again I'm routing, and anytime we're routing, we can hit C and enter to initiate the connect command, and I'll grab onto that nozzle, and I'll let CADWorx make this connection for me. So you can see how using this type of automation with these piping rules and the plus grips and the square grips, we're not doing block modeling anymore. We're getting our A to B's done and then coming back and using assemblies or plus grips to do our inline components. It's a great efficiency increase. Now, if I try to put in my, my strainer and block valve here, my gate valve, what I'm going to end up finding is that I don't quite have enough room there to accommodate them. So again, I can use my square grip on the center of the pipe to make modifications to my existing layout. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull south, and I'm going to give myself an additional 12 inches. So I've used that automation. Everything has stayed connected. Now again, I can come in and grab an assembly. So instead of having to insert components manually from a spec view or from a toolbar or pull down, or even using the plus grips, because I already have this assembly set up, I can come over and just insert it. And I'll grab right here on the connection point for the eccentric reducer. And when I click there, it'll ask for my orientation for my strainer. And I'll click, and you see it automatically gave me fitting makeup for my my connection criteria there for the flanged components. And I can hit enter to repeat that command and place it again, set my rotation on the other side. And we could also actually do a copy, and CADWorx would cut that pipe out for us as well. Okay, I'd like to see if we have any questions now. Let me pop over into the questions tab. And you'll have to forgive me. I'm not as used to dealing with the GoToWebinar, but I'm not seeing any questions there at this time. What we can do is we can take questions offline as well. Our contact information is available on our website, which is plantdesignsolutions.com, and you can contact us there through our support page, and we will get all of your questions answered that way. And with that, that concludes our webinar, and we look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thank you very much.